part 1 on how to create a spaceship. And right now we're going to be making the spaceship body, and it will look something like this. So let's go to the next step. The first thing that you're going to do is you're going to place a sphere on the work plane and scale it up equally on all axes. So the axes are the X, the Y, and then the Z axes, which is up and down. And we're going to scale it to 30 millimeters. So let's drag a sphere onto the work plane. And then you are going to click the corner, hold the Shift key on your keyboard, and then scale it up until you get to 30 millimeters and let go. Next, we are going to place a paraboloid and a box on the work plane. A paraboloid, if you scroll down in the shapes, looks sort of like a cone with a rounded top. So drag that on, and then also a box. Next, it says to scale the paraboloid up on all axes to 30 millimeters and make the box a hole. So we're going to do the same thing to the paraboloid that we did to the sphere. Click on one of the corners, hold the Shift key on your keyboard, and scale it up to 30, and then let go. Then we're going to make the box a hole by clicking in the inspector window here. You'll know it's a hole if it is transparent or see-through. Next, we are going to align the paraboloid and the box so that they are centered on the X and Y axis. So let's move this over here. We're going to select both the paraboloid and the box. So I already have the box selected. Now I'm going to hold my Shift key down and select the paraboloid. Now you can see they are both selected. And we're going to go up here to the right. Next to the group functions, there is something called the Align button. You can also hit L on your keyboard. And you'll notice these black dots appear. And when you hover over them, not clicking on them, you can see where they will align to. So we want to align on the X and Y axis so that they are centered and on top of each other. So first we're going to click this middle black dot. And now they are aligned on top of each other, but not completely. You can kind of tell that it is a little bit off. So you also need to click this one here as well. Now they are both centered on top of each other. And then last, it says to also choose the top tab along the height. The top tab is this top black button, and you can see this red box appears. That's just telling us that they are going to both align to the very top. So now our box has moved up a little bit. Step 5 says to move the box up even more so that it cuts out a half sphere from the top of the paraboloid. So what that means is we're going to click the box and make sure you have the box selected, not the paraboloid. You're going to click on the little cone, black cone that is above the paraboloid, and we're going to click and drag this up until we see sort of a half sphere shape on the paraboloid. So whenever you have a hole on top of a solid object, it creates a gray sort of shadow or overlay, and that tells you what is going to be cut out once you group them together. So I'm actually going to push this down just a little bit more to about here. Once the box is in place, you're going to group it with the paraboloid. So now I'm going to select both again, hold down my Shift key, and select the paraboloid. And you can see they're all outlined in blue, which means they're both selected. And I'm going to hit Control G or the group button right here. And you'll see that the hole, the box, disappears and it cuts off the top, so we have a flat top to the paraboloid. Next, you are going to align the paraboloid with the sphere the same way we did with the box and the paraboloid. So I'm going to select both. Another way to select two objects is to click and drag a box around both. And then again, hit L on your keyboard or the align button up here. And we're going to align in the middle this way and in the middle this way as well. Now what we're going to do is we're going to move the paraboloid up so that it sits on top of the sphere. So you can't see the paraboloid because it's kind of hidden inside the sphere. It sort of looks like a snow globe right now. So to select the paraboloid, select it on the bottom, and then look for the little cone again, and you're going to pull this up all the way to about here. Now, if you pull it up too high, like this, and then you kind of go underneath, you'll see that there is, it's hard to see here. You'll see there's a bit of an overhang right here, and we don't want that. We want there to be like a smooth transition between the two objects. So I'm just going to pull this down a little, and you'll see some blue overlapping with the paraboloid, and that's kind of what you want. Now we are going to select both objects again, and we're going to group them. And you'll know they'll be grouped if they're the same color. So now they're all blue. And you should have this shape. Okay, let's go to the next set of instructions, 3 out of 5. Next, we're going to be making something called the escape pod. It's essentially the top of the rocket ship or spaceship. And it's going to look something like this. So the first thing we're going to do is press W, or you can select it over here where it says work plane. And what the work plane tool is it just simply changes where this blue work plane, or like what I like to call it is the floor or the table, it changes where it is. So for instance, this is just an example, you don't need to do this. If I click the work plane, you'll see this box or square, and I can put it anywhere I want. So let's say I put it on the side of my object. You'll see that my blue work plane sort of disappears, and now I have this new orange work plane that's on an angle. And essentially what I've done is I've shifted the work plane or the floor to be on the side of this object. And this is a good tool if you're trying to place an object in a very specific angle or in a specific spot. So for instance, every time I put the roof on, you can see that the bottom is now facing this way, as opposed to if I was doing the work plane here, when I put the roof on, the object goes this way. So there's it on that work plane, and there it is on that work plane. So that's just an example. For now, we're going to be putting the work plane on the top of this. So I'm going to click work plane again, so you want to do this now. Click it on the top of your object, and now you should have this orange square. And now we're going to place a paraboloid on top. Now, their instructions are a little bit out of order, in my opinion. They tell you to align the paraboloid with the object, but then that sort of becomes obsolete or not necessary, because then when you go to scale the paraboloid, it will end up moving out of alignment. So what I like to do is actually switch step 3 and step 2. So I'm going to actually scale my paraboloid first, and then I'll align them. So let's zoom in a little. Whoop, too much. And we need to scale it to 10 by 10 millimeters on the X and Y axis. And then we need to change the height to 15. So to do that, I'm going to click the side once so that you see the red, it becomes highlighted with red. And I'm going to click the measurement and type in 10, enter. And then make sure you do the other side as well, 10, enter. And then we're going to take the height and we're going to bring it down to 15. There we go. Now we need to align the two. We can switch our work plane back to where it was before, so I'm going to click work plane and just click anywhere on the original area down here. So now we're back to our original work plane. I'm going to select both objects and I'm going to hit the align tool again. And then I am going to do the same thing we did with the first steps. I'm going to align it here in the middle. Now it looks like it's aligned in the middle, but if I rotate, you'll see that it's actually aligned to the left here. So we also need to click this middle button. Now if you orbit around, you can see that it is in the center. Okay, the next step is we're going to make a divider and a nose cap on top of it. It's going to look something like this. I know right now it doesn't look like a spaceship, but eventually it will, trust me. So first we're going to place a torus on the work plane. So if you don't know what a torus is, because when I first did this program, I didn't know what that was either. When you scroll through the basic shapes, all of the names are underneath them. Eventually you'll remember what they are, but a torus is like a donut shape. In my opinion, they probably should have just called it a donut. Okay, now we're going to select both the torus and the escape pod, which is this, and we're going to align them. Now, one thing I didn't do that I forgot is that we need to group these together. So before you do anything with the torus, select these and group those together. Okay, now we can align both of these. Press align, and then we're going to go middle and middle. Now, we need to move the torus up, and the torus, though, is down on the bottom. So you're going to have to make sure that you rotate a little bit, and remember to use your right click on your mouse to orbit, or use the cube right here. So click on the torus or the donut down here, and it says move the divider up on the z-axis about 63 millimeters. So if we click the little triangle, and as you pull it up, you'll notice there's an arrow on the right-hand side. And it's telling me how many millimeters I am pulling this up. So right now it's at 20 millimeters, 26, and I'm going to bring it all the way up. It says to 63, but I don't think that's correct, because you want it to be right here. I find that sometimes these instructions on Tinkercad are not that great, which is why I'm doing this demo for you. So I'm going to put it there for now. Okay. Then it says to make the nose cap, place a cone on the work plane. So not a paraboloid, we're going to find the cone. Cone, right here. We're going to rotate it 180 degrees, so that means upside down, so that the point is upside down. So we're going to use this rotation, and we're just going to rotate it all the way. And you can hold the shift key, and that will snap it to 180 degrees. Okay, now it says switch to the work plane, press W, and select the base of the cone. So this is the base of the cone, or what was originally the base of the cone. Click work plane, click on here. Step 6 says place a paraboloid on the base of the cone. So go down to the paraboloid and place it on top of the cone here. So now we're going to select the two objects and we're going to align them. Okay, and you can see they're actually the same size, so you don't need to do any resizing. Now, while they're still selected, just press the group button so that they become one object. Now it says it's telling us to align it to this here, but I'm actually going to skip ahead and I'm going to resize this now. So it says holding shift, I'm on step 11, holding shift, scale the nose cap down to 22 millimeters. So I'm going to hold the shift key and I'm going to click. Okay, so this is where their instructions again are not necessarily correct. So my suggestion would be move this on top of here. And it's okay if all of our spaceships are a little bit different, but we're looking for something like this. So resize it. If you want the nose cap to be a little bigger, you can do that. I'm going to do about 9 by 9. And then I'm going to align both of these. Center and center. Okay? That looks about right. Also, another instruction that they don't have in here is to resize the donut or the torus. So you can make it a little bit smaller. You can also mess around with the radius in the tube here. So the radius will expand the center. We don't want that. It was pretty good where it was before. And then the tube makes it more voluminous. So you can do something. You can also type in, so I could do 2, like that. And that looks about right. Okay. So all of these steps, pretty much 9 through 12, aren't really that helpful. So resize these two to what you want them to be and just make sure they're in these positions and that they're aligned. And then you can change the colors to match these. Or if you'd like, you can make the spaceship whatever color you want. I don't care. So I'm going to change mine to be purple. And I'm going to change this to white. And I'm going to change the top also to white. Okay. And then the last step is we're going to make a door. The door is going to look something like this right here. Okay. So they're telling you to select this sphere down here and duplicate it, but I also don't think that's a great instruction because then you have to go through all the trouble of ungrouping things. So instead what we're going to do is we're just going to drag a sphere into the work plane. And we're just going to scale it down a tiny bit. So I'm holding the shift key and I'm just making it a little bit smaller. Now the door, we're going to place this sphere inside. So you're going to click and drag this in here. And if you want, you can make it a little bit skinnier this way. And use the pyramid or the little cone here to pick this up. And then you can place this inside like this. And then you can play around with how much you want this. So this is sticking out a lot. So I'm going to push this down a little more. And it's up to you where you want it. If you want the door to be a little bit higher, then you can push this up. I'm going to put it a little bit lower. And then I'm also going to just flatten it a little bit because it's sticking out a lot. So I'm using the black arrow, the black square right here. Okay, that's too much. Again, if you are feeling like it's jumping too much, you can change the snap grid down here to off, and that gives you more freedom to move at smaller increments, like that. So that looks pretty good to me, and I'm also going to change that color to white. Again, you can do whatever color you want here. Okay, and that's it. So we've created the body of the spaceship, and we've also created a door. You can press done here, and then the next step in the next video I will do will be on creating the wings for the spaceship. So make sure to press continue here, and then you can look for my next video on how to create the wings. Thanks for watching.